Okay, we are live. Okay, hey guys, so welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I ask you please click subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notification bell, all that stuff. Cool. Now that that stuff's out of the way, I would like to introduce my special guest for today. It's been a minute since I did one of these, like an interview or something like that. I apologize, I've been kind of busy, but we are back today with another interview. And as is custom on this channel, I always like to let the guests introduce themselves. So, Ms. Laura, why don't you take a little bit of time to introduce yourself really quickly?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm from Anchorage, Alaska, and I'm an English teacher here. I am married to a wonderful man from Hong Kong. We have been married for about 6 months now, and so it's been pretty great.
Wow, so many great things just said right there. First of all, I just want to shout out to you because you just mentioned that your husband is from Hong Kong, and again, everyone watching and you as well, Laura, do not get this twisted, don't take it the wrong way. But I'm so glad that a woman finally said that, like an Asian man who doesn't happen to be Korean, because Korean guys are getting all the love and they're getting all the women, and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like us Chinese guys are kind of getting thrown in the dark. So props to you. Props to you. Brownie points to you for doing that. That's amazing. Um, but okay, well, yeah. So obviously, you just sort of mentioned it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your relationship or your marriage to your husband? Like how, what was that like? What was the dating process like? At first, and how did things sort of really take off from there?
Well, we met actually on an AMWF Facebook group. Um, so I was an English teacher overseas in South Korea for 2 years. Then I came back to the US and I was just kind of looking around and I saw the groups on Facebook and I joined one. And I had been on there for a couple of months and he kind of just messaged me one day and I was like, oh, he's nice to talk to. And, we kind of talked for about 6 months before I realized, like, just as friends, that I was totally head over heels in love with him. And it kind of just went from there. We were long distance too. He was living in Virginia. So he came to the US at 18 and then joined the US Army. And so he had just gotten out of the Army and was in Virginia. And of course, I'm in Alaska. So we were long distance for about 2 years. He is now a nurse and has is in the process of getting all his stuff up to Alaska. So we've been together about 2 years now, and it's been an interesting road.
Hmm. So you said that you were talking to him before you even met him. You were talking to him for half a year, 6 months.
Hmm.
Wow. That is, yeah, that's a very long time. I mean, I understand, I guess, you know what I mean? Like the long distance, definitely plays a factor there. But okay, wow, that's very interesting. So I just had a question about something you just said. So you said that, like even as just friends, you realize, that, you may have had feelings for him or whatever. Like, can you go into that? Like, what do you mean, like, as friends? Because I think, like, I'm sort of confused on, like, what you mean by that. Like, I don't think you're talking about just like quote unquote like friend zone, right? Like that's not exactly like what happened here, right? Like you.
No, actually, he never made the first move. It was all on me. So he was like super shy, just really sweet. He would just message me every day to say hello, and I was kind of like, this is at first I was like, this is kind of weird, like, but I enjoyed talking to him. And, it was never one of those like hi messages. It was just like he always had something interesting to say. And like it wasn't friend zoned. I just legit enjoyed talking to each other. And, he never was pushy or impolite or suggestive, just kind of hi, we enjoyed talking to each other. And he kept messaging me every day, not weird, not creepy. He would just ask me about my day, about things that I was doing. And I just realized that more and more and more I enjoyed talking to him because of how sweet and polite he was.
Hmm. Well, that's very interesting. That's great. I mean, it just feels like from what you told me just now, it just feels like it was a very natural. like evolution from, what I mean, like going from casual to just, up, outright, romantic, basically, for lack of a better word. So, but that's really cool. So that's really cool. So I just had a question really quickly. So because of how, your guys' relationship got started, and you know what I mean, sort of obviously everything online, I feel like, especially with, quote unquote Bud Light or the pandemic that we're going through right now, everything seems to be sort of long distance. A lot of people seem a lot more isolated from each other. You know what I mean? Dating definitely has maybe sort of shifted or altered in terms of how people communicate with each other now, and all that stuff. And so it feels like everything nowadays is online. Everything's either through, what I mean, like Facebook or Twitter, Instagram or TikTok, or one of these dating apps or whatever. Um, so I guess, what would your advice be to, what I mean, like other couples, or not couples, but like, other single people who, might be interested in using one of these apps, or using maybe like, what's it called, like a Facebook group to start talking to each other. You know what I mean? Like, what would your advice be on that, and sort of how would you sort of, like pace yourself, you know what I mean, in that type of situation?
Well, for me, the biggest thing was he came into everything just wanting to be friends and being generally interested. Like, there was no pressure to date right off the bat. And I found that extremely attractive. Um, and he was interesting and there was always conversation. Like, there was never like awkward moments because he would come in and like generally ask me something that was interesting. It wasn't just the hi, how are you? Why do you like, why are you here? It was, he would ask me things like about Alaska, or he would just bring up a random science fact or something that made me laugh. And then it would end up with hours of conversation.
Well, that's great. And everyone, all the single guys watching right now, just take note of what she's saying. Like, if you want to get a woman's attention, then you kind of have to pay more attention to it. You basically just don't start out saying, hi, how are you? Like, how's it going? All this, because that stuff's very generic sounding. So, it sounds like your husband, when he's first getting to know you, definitely put in some work, which what would be recommended in this type of situation. Um, so, sort of shifting gears really quickly, I just have a couple questions about like Alaska and all that stuff in your home. So, I am currently, for those of you who don't know this, I'm now in Northern California. So, I'm not in LA anymore. I was there for about a little while, but now I have, for work, I'm up here now. And it's freaking cold as hell up here. It's cold as hell. Like, they literally, I asked my coworker last night, and I was like, so, like, what are summers like here? And they're like, summers? Well, the highest it gets is like 75, and I'm like, that sounds like a normal spring day for us in Northern California, but I guess up here it's a little bit different. So what is like the weather up there? I know it sounds kind of oxymoron to ask, but like, what is the weather up there? And I guess on that note, what are summers like? How hot does it get in the summer?
So we totally have four seasons. I don't know why so many people think it's winter here year round. It's not. Summers are usually 60 to 70 degrees. Occasionally, maybe once a year, we get a like close to 80, which is ridiculously hot for us. And things start to catch on fire. But it's beautiful here during the summer because you can go out and hike and do all of your sports that you're interested in. It's not like death heat. Winters are when it gets a little rough because, right now we have about 4 hours of daylight right now here in Anchorage, Alaska. We're currently sitting with like 4 feet on the snow on the ground, and we're getting buried. So it's been a crazy week snow wise.
Wow, I can't, like, this is surreal for me. This is literally the second day in a row where someone has told me the hottest it gets in the summer is like 80 or 75. Like again, like I was stressed. Like, I'm from LA, so there, like, the hottest it gets there is like maybe 120 or anything
Ew.
like that. So yeah, so that's ridiculous. So I can't believe there's some people who have never experienced that kind of weather before. It's amazing. Um, but I guess that's a good thing that I packed a lot of sweaters then. But yeah, so and just one more question on the topic of Alaska. So, um, as far as like being able to commute from Alaska to like all the other states, right? Like in the country and all this stuff. Like, how how difficult or how easy is it? Like, how, I guess what I'm trying to ask is how isolated really is that state? And please don't take it like the wrong way and everything like that. It's I have nothing but love for Alaska, so just don't get that twisted. But yeah.
No, it's a legit question. We are pretty isolated. So if you wanted to get in your car and drive, you got to remember that Alaska is about one third the size of the United States. So for me to even get to the Canada border here, it would be probably a 12-hour drive up through Fairbanks and then into Yukon. From there, I drove it once in 2011. It took close to 7 days to even get to the rest of the US. You have to drive the Alcan, and it is insane. I highly recommend you do it. Don't do it in the winter, but if you can, drive it during the summer. It's amazing. Um, Other than that, we can't even drive to our capital. You have to fly. Um, Anywhere else, you have to fly. Even flying to Seattle, it's about 5 hours from here. I currently live in the largest city in the state, and we have about 300,000 people here in Anchorage.
300,000. Holy shit. Wow, that is a lot. I thought California was huge. Holy crap. Yeah, no, well, that's, yeah. Well, okay. So, that's very interesting. I've always wanted to visit Alaska. I actually had, like I've had like a couple, like before this I've had like a couple of like job offers, job interviews coming out of there, and I chose not to take it because I had something closer to home. But yeah, I've always wanted to visit it. It sounds and looks beautiful, so definitely one day I'll definitely check it out. um so okay, so yeah, so just a few more questions. So yeah, and my next topic is definitely going to sound redundant because I've definitely talked about it a lot here on this channel before. But a lot of women that I've interviewed, and even a couple of guys, definitely all agree that Asian guys in general are very shy, or at least in their experience, right? Like the general consensus seems to be that they are maybe shyer than the average person, which is unfortunate, and maybe it's not necessarily true in some cases or whatever. But like I said, like a lot of people that I've talked to here on this channel seem to agree with that fact. And so I guess like what would be your, not to generalize or anything like that, but just sort of stating fact, there are a lot of shy people out there. And so if, for your opinion, your advice, like what would be your advice to a lot of those shy people out there, a lot of those shy guys who are interested in dating outside their race, whether it's white or black or Latina or maybe even just women in general, like what would be your advice to them in order to sort of, initiate some sort of communication with, someone else, whether it's in person or it's online, anything like that?
Well, I know it's hard because I'm a pretty shy, like introverted person myself. Um, but you have to start somewhere. If you don't make that first move, it's never going to happen. I know it takes a lot of courage, but once you get over that first step, maybe it does get easier, especially if you find things to talk about and you realize that you have to just realize that it's a person that you're talking to, and they're going to have likes and interests. And I think if you look at dating more like becoming friends, it makes things easier. Like, yes, the final goal is to date, but maybe try to take some of the pressure off and realize maybe I can just become friends with this person or have a good conversation with them instead of being like, oh my gosh, this could be the one. This could be the person that I marry, or she's too good for me, or he's too good for me. I think you need to just take a step back and like just start with maybe I could have a conversation with this person and kind of take some of the pressure off yourself.
Well, yeah, that's definitely great advice, and I believe, yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, especially as I've gotten a little bit older. Is that like things don't happen on their own. You have to ultimately, you have to make the first move, or she has to make the first move. Anybody, just in general, so yeah, I definitely agree with that. And what I mean, like I said, this is everyone watching at home. If you are a shy person or whatever, don't take it the wrong way. I'm definitely not trying to put you on blast. We're just trying to help everyone, sort of essentially, make the first move or get themselves out there because it is hard. For me, even for me, at times it's hard, sort of, initiating, especially in person. It's hard, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, nerves, or whatever, fear of rejection. But you shouldn't necessarily let that stuff stop you, because, like you said, like, what I mean, like nothing necessarily happens on its own, especially dating. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, so just a couple more questions. So I just had a question also. So
Mhm.
going back to your marriage with your husband, like culturally speaking, like were there any sort of, I guess, like barriers or gaps that sort of presented themselves as sort of like an obstacle at first, or sort of took some time to get used to, or like how and sort of to add to that question, how did his parents react to your guys's going out at first, what I mean, and then eventually getting married?
They were a little. His parents were a little surprised at first. Nobody expected him to bring me home, but his parents absolutely love me, and we have a great relationship. We do our best to communicate. They really don't speak any English, and he's taking small steps to kind of teach me how to speak. So it's we're getting there. But in his parents, they're very warm, welcoming, and inviting. And he's kind of given me a crash course on how to interact with his parents. But so far, we've had no problems parent wise. They're just super happy, welcoming. But the biggest thing about our relationship has been learning to communicate, because as an American, I feel like we do have different communication styles, and then you have to add in the language, because he's only been speaking English for about 6 or 7 years. And while he is very proficient, I forget a lot of times that he doesn't pick up a lot of the nuances or things of my speech. So I tend to forget that, and then it leaves weird gaps, like especially when I'm using slang language or things that are not very direct. I have to speak very directly to him. Like, it's, second nature of me to be like, "Oh, the store is down the road." And he's like, "What does down the road mean?" He is very logical and very straightforward and needs everything to be direct. So we have gotten in a few like little fights about being direct, um, and some of the communication. But as a whole, we really love each other, and so we're both taking steps to kind of understand how the other person works and what we need to do to make it easier for the other person to understand. And it's never about changing the other person or trying to make them fit into our cultures. It's just kind of everything we do is like meshing them.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely great. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I definitely can relate. I mean, it's yeah, yeah. It's just it sounds, yeah, sounds good stuff. But okay. So let's see. What are my last few questions? Okay. So I'm just curious. So for me personally, like, like obviously right now, like I'm single, but like when I have gone out before, or been in relationships before, whenever it's like interracial, whatever, like I usually, at times, even though it was LA, at times I would get like stares, or maybe even not necessarily comments, but like a lot of staring, unfortunately. And it's something that, what I mean, like I just sort of try to zone out or tune out, but it has happened before. And so I was just wondering, like in your guys' case, has that ever happened to you? Like when you are together, when you were first going out, or even nowadays? Like, do you ever get comments from people, anything like that?
Yep, all the time. It happens a lot here. It's not super common here. Um, Lots of stairs, lots of things. And when we've been back home where he lives, his parents live in a very large Asian community. We get lots of stares there. We get lots of here. People will comment things, and I mean, sometimes it's even weird. Like, we'll be out at dinner and people will. No one assumes we're a couple, which I think is odd. Even though we're married and everything, people will automatically come in and be like, "Do you want to pay separately?" Even though we're standing together, putting our stuff together, talking together. That's something I've always found really odd.
Oh yeah. Well, that is yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It definitely sucks, basically. Um, Yeah, but all right. Well, I think we're reaching 20-minute mark, so I'm gonna close out this interview. But I want to thank you very much for joining our channel today and answering all my questions, everything like that. I know a lot of people definitely look forward to this interview and hearing what you had to say. And for everyone watching, if you made it this far, thank you very much. You're awesome. Please hit the like button, comment, subscribe, all that stuff to the channel. If you're not, hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video like this. And again, Miss Laura, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Everyone watching at home, I have literally like another thing coming up very, very soon. So please stick around. But again, thank you to my guests. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you guys later. So